Both men and women have masculine and feminine qualities within them. Some of this is genetic, and some of it comes from the profound influence of the parent of the opposite sex. But in the need to present a consistent identity in society, we tend to repress these qualities by over-identifying with the masculine or feminine role that is expected of us. And the price we pay for this is that we lose valuable dimensions to our character. Our thinking and ways of acting becomes rigid. You must become aware of these lost masculine or feminine traits and slowly reconnect to them, unleashing creative powers in the process. You want to do this because you will become more fluid in your thinking. In bringing out the masculine or feminine undertone in your character, you will fascinate people by being authentically yourself, because real respect comes from authenticity. You might like to imagine that much has changed when it comes to gender roles, but in thinking so, you would be greatly mistaken. The specific details of gender roles might fluctuate according to culture and time period, but the pattern is essentially the same. We are all born as complete beings with many sides to us. We have some qualities of the opposite sex, both genetically and from the influence of the parent of the opposite gender. Our character has natural depths and dimensions to it. When it comes to boys, studies have shown that at an early age they have high degrees of empathy and sensitivity. Similarly, girls also have an adventurous and exploratory spirit that is natural to them. They have powerful wills which they like to exert in transforming their environment. But as these children grow older, they have to present to the world a consistent identity. They have to play certain roles and live up to certain expectations. For these purposes, they trim off natural qualities in their character. Boys lose their rich range of emotions and in the struggle to get ahead, repress their natural empathy. Girls have to sacrifice their assertive sides. They are supposed to be nice, smiling, differential, and always considering other people's feelings before their own. A woman can be a boss, but she must be tender, pliant, and never too aggressive. Your task is to let go of the rigidity that takes hold as you try to over-identify with the expected gender role. Great power lies in exploring the middle range between the masculine and the feminine. By embracing both masculine and feminine sides of your character, you can not only play against people's expectations, but also you can relate better to the opposite gender. In primitive cultures around the world, the wisest man or woman in the tribe was the shaman, the healer who could communicate with the spiritual world. The male shaman had an inner woman whom he closely listened to. The female shaman had an inner man. The shaman's power came from the depth of their communication with this inner figure, which was experienced as a real man or woman from within. The shaman figure reflects a profound psychological truth that our most primitive ancestors had access to. Let us say that there are feminine and masculine styles when it comes to thinking, taking action, learning from experience, and relating to other people. Let's take a closer look and differentiate between these two styles. Masculine thinking is more logical and tends to separate phenomena from one another in order to categorize them. It wants to take things apart like a machine and analyze the separate parts that made up the whole. Its thought process is linear, and it prefers to look at things from the outside with emotional detachment. Female thinking, on the other hand, is much more intuitive and creative. It likes to focus on the whole and how the parts connect to one another. It always meditates on looking for connection between different aspects of something. This form of thinking leads to insights when the hidden connections between the things suddenly become visible in flashes. For too long, the masculine style has been seen as more rational and scientific, but this does not reflect the reality. All of the greatest scientists in history have displayed a powerful mix of both the masculine and the feminine styles of thinking. In business, Warren Buffett is a good example of someone who blends both of the two styles. When it comes to taking action, The masculine tendency is to move forward, explore the situation, then attack and vanquish. If there are obstacles in the way, it will try to push through them. This desire is aptly expressed by the ancient military leader Hannibal when he says, "I will either find a way or make a way." It derives pleasure from staying on the offensive and taking risks. The feminine style of taking action, on the other hand, is not hasty and aggressive. When confronted with a problem, the feminine style often prefers to first withdraw from the immediate situation and contemplate on the options more deeply. It will often look for ways to avoid the conflict, to smooth out the relations, and to win without having to go to battle. Indeed, sometimes the best action is non-action, letting the enemy hang itself by its own aggressiveness. In general, the masculine energy is not very good at self-assessment and learning. A man's sense of self is deeply tied to their success, and he often does not like to look inward if he fails. This makes it difficult to learn from failures. Similarly, if there is a problem, the masculine style is to try to figure out on his own. This is because asking for help is a sign of weakness for the masculine energy. Men will overestimate their abilities and display confidence in their skills. For the feminine energy, the case is the opposite. When there is a failure, they tend to blame themselves and look inward. If there is success, they are more prone to look at the role of others in helping them. They find it easy to ask for assistance, and they do not see this as a sign of personal inadequacy. They often tend to underestimate their skills and are less prone to the grandiose confidence that often fuels men. Just like the male chimpanzees, the masculine style would either aspire to be a leader or try to gain power by being the most loyal follower. Men form hierarchies. They are highly conscious of their place in the group. If they are leaders, they will tend to use some element of fear to keep the group cohesive. The masculine style of leadership is to identify clear goals and to reach them. It puts emphasis on the results, no matter how they are achieved. The feminine style is about maintaining the group spirit and keeping the relationship smooth. With fewer differences among individuals, it is more empathetic, considering the feelings of each member and trying to involve them more. In the decision-making process, results are important, but the way they are achieved, which is the process, is equally important. These styles have been reflected on the behavior of men and women for thousands of years. Some are related to physiological differences, while others stem mostly from the culture. There are men who have more feminine styles and women who have more masculine styles. But almost all of us are imbalanced to either one side or to the other. Our task is to open ourselves to the opposite, to lose our rigidity and become more aware and influensive.